All right, folks. Welcome aboard. We're going to start in a second. We'll be starting in a second. En un segundo vamos a comenzar. Y sabe que mi amigo aquí, mi gringo favorito, él habla español también.
Sí, siempre es un placer verte, mi gran amigo.
All right, well, let's get started. Welcome to another edition of Egberto Off the Record via Politics Done Right. This will be played as well on Pacifica Network and several stations. So I wanted to have this discussion with my good friend. I'm trying to see how to best describe him.
Girl band.
Never met in person, but we connect so very well. Walter Rhyme. I always never know if to say Rhein or
Oh, you're
Rhyme.
right. You got it perfect. You're perfect.
Okay. And one of our premier substackers here, and always have interesting conversation, always have great people. There's not I wouldn't have this conversation that I've been wanting to have for a long time with any and anybody. It had to be someone like my brother here. What we want to talk about today is when our white brothers and sisters lose their adjacency to whiteness, a frank discussion. And I think some of these types of topics people run away from. They shouldn't. Let me first tell you, and I'll be remiss if I don't tell you what I think about race. I do not believe in race at all because I know better. I am an engineer, a scientist. I know I've learned these things, and it is so ridiculous that so much in this country is based on race. We have to meet people where they are because we are in a racialized society. So without further ado, mi hermano de otra madre, my brother from another mother. How are you doing, Walter?
I'm doing, all things considered, I'm doing as well as I could, and it brings me great joy to talk to wonderful, brilliant, and compassionate people like you who are out there who see the problems we're confronting and is doing everything you can to fix it. So thank you for your efforts.
Well, look, I want to thank you too because the kinds of conversations you have, I make sure and drop, there's a lot happening and I drop in when I can, but there are certain topics that you have. I say, I've got to drop in. But
Yeah.
anyway, I want to start this way. O- over the, over the last several months, many people have been murdered
Yeah.
by ICE and CBP. Okay.
Mhm.
But the ones that got the most attention was the murder of Miss Good,
Yeah.
Rene Good, and the murder of Alex Preti. Now, and one of the reasons why, and I think, and if correct me if you think I don't have this right, but I think because of our mass media and everything else comes from a white point of view, that that was brought home to many people. Wow, it can happen to me.
Mhm.
And why did it happen in front of so many others? Why did it happen to me? Please take it away.
And yeah, and Eric mentioned Keith Porter, and there's a long list of all the people that have lost their lives, and we were just talking before. I mean, the 109 was the last count I heard of people that were killed in the illegal attack on Venezuela, and it's just been infuriating to me to watch this indifference to these attacks on humanity, and I think the most impactful thing recently was this poor child, Liam Ramos, 5 years old, and the reports were out that he was essentially the stress of being detained was killing him. And there was this scathing court order where he was finally released. But one of the things I've been just telling people, and it's like, we have to go out and demand that these detention centers, they're not torturing and raping or murdering little kids, right? And we need that assurance from our government that our government is not doing these crimes against humanity. But you're right. I mean, so much of the white population is indifferent. And the second they see some white person get executed, that's the first time they pay attention, which is shameful. And then far too many of them are willing to listen to the lies of the regime that then uh, attack that person's character and find excuses to try and justify these unjustifiable executions. And it's just at some point, America, we have to look into our heart. And I've just been this weekend, I was out skiing and I said, what's a message I can do just to kind of see if people are activated? And I was just saying, may you be a force of justice for good. And I've just been saying that the same way we say Merry Christmas, you know? And you always see these arguments, this rhetoric of white supremacy, where they tell us, oh, you're not allowed to talk about politics or religion at dinner. But then white supremacists always carve out exceptions for themselves. Because if you say happy holidays, they think like you're attacking them. But they reserve for themselves the right to say, Merry Christmas. So I'm just starting to say to people, hey, may you be a force of justice for good. And of course, it refers to the execution in Minneapolis. But who can say that they're offended by the idea of justice for good? And I think it's time good gets a couple wins in more than one way in the United States.
That's what I like you, and it's amazing how you double use the word good right there because it also covers Rene's name. One of the things I like about what you do is you're not fearful in calling it out, and I don't know if that has to do with your because of your former life in Peru, and because you're also married to a Peruvian. Tell me what that has actually done in order to
Yeah.
open your eyes, and before you answer that, what do you think it's going to take? There's a certain percentage of my white brothers and sisters that they get it right away. They don't have to live it. They are sufficiently empathetic. Unfortunately, I don't think that's a majority. That's why Republicans still garner the majority of the white vote, even as they are a rather evil party. Explain.
Yeah, it's a long process, and I grew up in a very rural, conservative community, and it was I was always sick at school, and if somebody made me aware, it's just like this pressure, you know? I'm a curious person by nature. You ask certain questions and you're attacked by authoritarians. And I struggled so much of my young life. I couldn't eat. And and then eventually, I managed to graduate, I managed to go to college, and it still wasn't working for me. And it's like I didn't know what it was. I didn't really have this awakening of what's going on in the United States. But eventually I just left because it came down to I got to get out of here. Anything's got to be better than this. And I ended up in South America just by kind of random chance. And the South American people just embraced me like a long lost son. And I just was able to rebuild my own psyche, all these stuff that's indoctrinated, these things that are indoctrinated into you. And I compare it often to if you're in an abusive relationship, you're conditioned to make excuses for your abuser. You're not allowed. Well, that wasn't abuse. His hand just slipped, or it was an accident, or this or this. And it takes a long time to just get to that moment of awakening where you said, "No, that was deliberate. That was abuse, and that's what they did to me." And so, since 2009, when we came back, I've seen how people have treated my wife, who is from Peru, and just the blatant racism of the United States has become more and more obvious. But I think the thing that makes me stand out or speak out is that 3 years ago, uh, I got a message that a child was missing from our community. And I called up a friend and he has a dog, and I had my dog, and we went out. And within 15 minutes of getting that message, I was at the site where her body was, and she'd
Oh,
been raped and she'd been murdered. And when you're in those moments, it stops being hypothetical, all this shit. Excuse me, sorry, I got worked up. But it's when you're in those moments where you see this cruelty, the reality of this cruelty, and you can't hide it anymore, you can't deny it anymore, and so you have to speak out. And we're seeing people get abused in these detention centers. They're having their rights violated. We have to speak out, and our tax dollars are funding this, and we have to be forces of justice for good in this world. And we can't pretend that evil's not out there, because there's more evil out there than you're prepared to deal with, but we have to deal with it.
it's amazing when you talk about there's more evil out there than you're prepared to deal with. That is so true. I mean, one of the biggest promoters of our felon in chief is the evangelical church. And you sit down and for those of you, I am now a humanist, but formerly I was a Christian. And you read the good book, and you find out that all the things that Trump and his cabal are doing, or I should say, that the cabal is making Trump do, because we know Trump doesn't have a lot upstairs. Um, I I find it I find it ironic that that church, and you know how the Catholic Church is from having been in Peru, but how the evangelical church here in the United States have actually not only been a backstop for Donald Trump and the cabal, but a supporter of all these things that seem to be so antithetical to what Jesus Christ represents, what Christianity or any religion for that
Yes.
matter represent. What's your thought on that?
I think we just have to be aware that white supremacy is a defilement. It is a defilement of Christianity. It takes the mechanism of Christianity and perverts it. And I would really, really love, I've been reaching out to religious leaders and say, look, you have to help us here because what is being going on, what is being presented as Christianity is not. They have defiled your sacred beliefs and they've turned it into something bad. And I know there are good Christians out there who sincerely believe in kindness and decency and humanitarian ideals. But we've all been indoctrinated to not speak out and to not stand up, to not, and just the other day, I just started doing this week where I would go to people and just say, be a force of justice for good. And the first couple of times I said it, I had to overcome something. And so I had to re-examine in my own, there was a reluctance for me to speak these words. Why do we have that reluctance? Why can't we go just to people in our community and say, be a force of justice for good? And that's where the obstacle is. What's in our minds, that indoctrination that allows us to be passive enablers of this evil that allows, the secret police to abduct little kids and abuse them in these detainment centers. We're enabling it. And we have to, this is where the battle is. It's in our hearts. It's not some external thing. It's not the midterms. It's not the presidential election. It's every single person here listening to this broadcast. Go out and be a force of justice for good and allow yourself to do it and quit believing all the lies that have turned you into an enabler of evil.
You know what is interesting? I haven't heard, you are, I don't know what religion you are or anything like that, but I haven't heard not one evangelical pastor, not one of them come out and give a good note about Miss Good or Mr. Pretty. I haven't heard any of them come out and talk about what we're doing to the humanity of these kids. I haven't heard any of that. All the compassion that I've heard so far is coming from people like us,
Yeah.
the ones that don't necessarily have their religion on their shoulders, whether you have one or not. It doesn't speak well for the promoters of this white nationalist type regime.
Yeah. And I mean, just open your own heart is really the key to it. And just examine how many Americans can look at 110 lives taken in Venezuela and not consider the loss of life. And then they don't connect that to immigration. Like, oh, maybe there's immigrants coming to our borders because we go into other countries and kidnap their leaders. That should be part of the discussion. It should be part of the discussion that it's legal to cross the US border, and apply for asylum within a year. That's 100% legal. And this hate language that the right always uses needs to be condemned. And the fact that the right then accuses the left of using hateful language just when we speak truth, and that compels us to remain silent. This cruelty flourishes in silence. So put that aside. Be a force of justice for good. Ask other people in your life to be a force. Ask them if they are. Are you a force of justice for good? And if they get angry, say, why are you getting angry about that? What in the idea of justice for good is making you angry? And, that can be the starting point and that can change some hearts. That's how we'll win.
And I think that is so important. I think when I have this phrase that I use all of the times, and that is, we tend to suffer in silence, but not only do we tend to suffer in silence, but that breeds something else. It also means that
Yes.
we are scared to leave the tribe, our comfort zone. I see when I speak to people, I have this phrase that I say all of the times. Most people are good. I always say that most people are good. And a good friend of mine, a great supporter of both Politics Done Right and Egberto Off the Record, he sent me a text directly and he said, I know what you're saying, but are you sure most people are good? And then he sent a whole lot of other stuff. And I still said, you know, the probability of me speaking, the probability of all the people that I speak to, and spoken to thousands of people, the probability and of these thousands of people, whether they are, and take this right, listeners, understand what I'm saying here. Even the racists that I've spoken to, as opposed to seeing, um, as opposed to seeing some evil, I've seen an otherwise nice person that is
Yeah.
ill-informed or indoctrinated. So yes, I still stick by most people are good. But the one thing that affects people is not having a place to land.
Mhm.
And what I've noticed is I would have great conversations in coffee shops in my neighborhood with people, and they would be 100%. Oh, wow, I understand that. And yeah, probably I need to do better. Just like you come out and you go out there and tell people, what can you do? That I forgot the phrasing that you use, but
Justice for
then
good.
justice for good, right? And then another day you see them at the same coffee shop, but this time, as opposed to sitting alone where they could have a conversation with you, what happens is they're with another group of friends and they see you
Mhm.
and you can see the terror in their eyes, like, oh my God, are you going to come over here and discuss what we discussed before? I mean, I know better. It's like, don't
Yeah.
worry, my friend, I won't pull the rug from under you.
Yeah.
I understand that you don't think you have a place to land, so you continue
Yeah.
to have the facade.
Uh, I mean, what we have a lot of people who have been deceived, and I mean, I think I can offer a lot of insight into this because again, I grew up in this rural conservative community that did every bit of pressure it could to turn me into one of these kind of narcissistic, racist,
Hmm.
just awful people, and it on a fundamental level. That's why I mean, I had asthma. I couldn't breathe and I couldn't eat because some part of me knew that this was an encroachment upon my basic integrity. And even so, a lot of it got in, and when I went to college, I struggled because I met people that were more enlightened, but it was going against this I had that cognitive dissonance, that jarring programming.
Hmm.
And it's not an easy thing. And this is the thing, as frustrated as I am with the people that vote for racists and vote for sex offenders and things like that, this process of deprogramming people is really challenging, and the way I did it was I lived in South America for 10 years, and it's like
Yeah.
but that puts it into context of how much
Right.
you have to do, and you learn a new language, and it's like there was a good solid year where I wasn't really even able to communicate with people, and that was the best thing for me because I couldn't say the offensive things, and then they just kinda go away. So how do we do that kind of programming? How do we give that opportunity to people? And I think education is a big part of it. And I also believe that a lot of this hate indoctrination, the white supremacists, they target our kids. And that's why it's so important for everybody to be involved in education, get on school boards, insist that we teach the true history of the United States, the true history, all the genocides and the rape farms, and the fact that so many of the first presidents had human beings as slaves. We have to say these things. We have to own the crimes of our country, and we have to fix it. We have to pay reparations for these crimes, and we have to restore decency. And I think, amazingly, I think it could be because racism is taught. It's not something that's inherent, and it's in conflict with who we are. It's in conflict with our basic integrity. And within one generation, it could be changed. But the more people that come along and are forces of justice for good, the faster we'll get there, and we can get there amazingly fast. I do believe that.
I do believe that too. And, in fact, that is a fear. Right now, we have those white nationalists right now. the Trump guys, they are like they say the most dangerous animal is one who is cornered.
Mhm.
And I think they have begun to feel cornered. And I
Mhm.
think that is where we're at today. That's why
Yes.
we're building concentration camps to get all those others out of here. And by the way, I want to go on a little tangent here because there's something that jarred me. I watched Rachel Maddow last night and I got jarred with, I think it was the Kansas City mayor who decided that he was not going to allow a concentration camp in his city. And he came on TV and he said, you know what? The connotation is, I think it was, maybe I have the particular mayor wrong, but he said, do you know what the connotation is of having that concentration camp right next to a railroad track? What
Oh,
connotation that
yeah.
has,
Yeah.
with, and I know everybody that's listening can really picture that. But the
Yes.
good thing about it is, as the Trump administration is running around America trying to find the concentration camps to put those brown and black folks that they want to ship back to Somalia, ship back to Venezuela, Nicaragua, and all these places, the people are saying, absolutamente no.
No.
We are not going to have it here.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Well, and you see those terrify or those just terrible pictures of poor Liam Ramos crying with his little Cookie Monster hat on.
yes,
And
yes,
there's no matter how indoctrinated a person is, there's a part of you that will respond to that. And we are seeing it's like this white supremacy knows it has to hide. It knows
yes.
it has to hide because deep down, even they know that what they're doing is wrong. And they're getting more and more desperate. And the thing about bullies is bullies are always weak. You know, they are weak, weak, weak people. They are people that can't build anything, so they covet what other people can create. They covet the achievements of accomplished people. They try to take them for themselves and slap their name on it. Who does that remind you of? They're weak.
Oh,
Yes,
yes,
right, right?
yes,
Because they
yes.
can't do anything. And the one thing they don't want is to be revealed as weak. And so they're going to get more and more desperate. But the more desperate they become, the more obvious they become, the more they reveal themselves. I feel as if the last 2 weeks have been a turning point. We'll see if that's true or not. But I feel as if, yes, the American people are waking up. They're becoming a force of justice for good and will continue that momentum forward.
I want to say something, Walter. You said the last 2 weeks you've seen a turning point, and I want to stop you right there and then say yes. Last week we saw a turning point, and it is our responsibility, all of us, to make sure that turning point stay on the trajectory that
Yes.
it's on,
Yes.
because it's up to us. It's not up to them. It's up to us whether we are going to continue it. And I want to kind of amplify something else that you said about the paper tiger that is the president and his cabal. Let's remember how the president was real gung ho about Greenland, and I'm not changing the subject to Greenland, but remember, as soon as Europe decided to expose a tiny bit of spine, we will tariff you and we will sell your bonds. Immediately, in
Yes.
less than 12 hours, it was done.
Yes.
Let's remember that.
Yes.
And let's also remember that Venezuela, as much as he took the credit for it, when Delcy Rodriguez says, which is the new president, the former vice president, told Trump a few things in his ears, she finally became, I can work with her. Because you think he wants to deal with the gorillas in
Yeah.
Latin America? Hell no.
Yep.
Okay. So I mean, these guys are in fact paper tigers, and they will succumb just like they had in Minneapolis as well. We have to give kudos to our
Yes.
Minnesota brothers and sisters who came out fighting. The two martyrs out there, pretty and good. Yes, and the people continued. So please, my brother.
Yes. I mean, bullies only start to offer compromises when they know they've already lost. And we can't forget in those moments the crimes that they've already committed. And we have to have accountability going forward. And this is why all the people listening in, encourage your representatives to come and talk to people like Egberto and me. Last week, I had wonderful conversations. And when it's independent people, I'm just a dad. You know, I'm a dad. I'm an English teacher. That's what I do. And I just want to have real conversations, not the the sanitized media talking heads that ask easy questions. Representatives are supposed to talk to the people. And in talking to us, we can influence, we can break the echo chamber, which allowed the rise of this bully culture, this white supremacy culture. We can insist that they push back because the only way, you can tell we've got all these silver spoon representatives who had private drivers and private chefs who have never had to stand up to a bully. I got beat up plenty of times on the school bus, and I learned you don't
You don't
negotiate with
give
a
in.
bully. You have to stand back up to the bully. And once the bully realizes your power, the bully is deprived of his, which he never had. It's always an illusion. So that's what we need going forward. And we need to start just demanding basic human dignity in the United States. We have to become a nation that's a force of justice for good.
I think we're, like you said, over the last 2 weeks with the victories that we've had, and when I talk about we, I'm talking about the good ones here in America. And yes, there are good ones here in America, as opposed to the bad ones that we have in the administration. As that goes on, I think people are making that necessary change. And I've been watching and following the people's moods, etc. And I'm starting to see it. There
Yep.
was I don't know if you follow some of the our indivisible king within our area, which I'm following, working with quite a bit. You can see the change in the morale. You can see the change in people starting to feel we can actually get out of this thing.
Yep.
We can also liberate ourselves from this thing. I don't know if you also recently heard about the reddest district in Texas was just won uh,
Yes.
by a landslide
Yep.
here in Texas. People are starting to see the door. They asked this guy, the guy who won, Taylor Remit. They said, "Why are you running as a Democrat? My God, you could have won that election as a Republican." He said, "Because of my morals, because what I believe, because I believe in equality, because I believe that we should all be working together." I'm paraphrasing, of course, but when he said that, I sat back and I said, "My God, it would have been so easy for this guy to win as a Republican." And he decided, "I am going to do this as a Democrat. I am going to do this as someone who will who will uphold those particular values that we purport to stand for."
Yes. Yes. And this is going to be a critical moment too, because as we win, because we will win, we can't be satisfied by going back to some ineffective status quo that created
Right.
all this. We have to
Yes.
dismantle the whole mechanism of injustice that protects child rapists. And that goes back decades. That's not any one political party or any one administration. There's a lot of people that could have taken action to protect those children. And we need to be a country that protects children. Force of justice for good for the kids. And it's just like, and just give yourself permission to speak about these things because people do want to hear it and just overcome that resistance to say what you know to be true in your heart. Just act with integrity, whether you think it's going to help or not. Don't be results oriented. Just go forth into the world and do all the good that you can. And we'll get there and stop being pressured into accepting like the lesser of two evils, which remains evil. We have to be, a force of justice for good. That's our goal.
Walter, I don't want to change subject, but I just want to say this real quickly to the audience. Right now, we are giving the Trump administration a very hard time, as we should, about the Epstein files and what should have been released. I want us to know that we ought to hold every single administration
Yeah.
in contempt,
Yes.
because this isn't new. This has been going on for decades. And the fact that we get to see the depravity of these
Yes.
capitalists. Think about it. We are seeing the depravity of what these wealthy capitalists are capable of doing to our people. And we have to acknowledge that. They think they live in a different stratosphere, right?
Yeah.
They live in a different stratosphere from the rest of us, and they have been protected not only by a Donald Trump and his cabal, but let's be very honest, every previous administration as well. We're coming up on time, so you take it away with whatever you want to say and close it, my brother, because we're in a schedule here to get this on air at Pacifica.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for being here, and please do what I said. In approach your representatives. Tell them to come and talk to us, whether it's Egberto or me or anybody else on Substack. We need our representatives talking to real human beings. Get out of their echo chamber. You can find me. I just forwarded streetsofperu.com. That goes to my Substack. It's called I'd Rather Be Writing. Love to see you there. Come in. I need to hear from all of you, and I promise you I'll always listen, and I'll pass your thoughts and your concerns on to the representatives I talk to, and we will make them hear us, and we will all become a force of justice for good.
Man, Walter, I love you. You're always great, my
I
brother.
love you
You are
too.
always great. Let me just say this, folks. Please remember to visit Walter's. Repeat your site again.
It's I'd Rather Be Writing. You can find it by going to streetsofperu.com, all one word.
And I am Egberto off the record. You can just go to egberto.substack.com to find us. Please remember, support independent media. You saw what happened to Don Lemon. You saw what happened to Georgia Fort. We need your support. We are the ones making a difference now. This is Egberto Willies along with my brother Walter Rhein. Thank you so kindly for having been on Egberto Off the Record through Politics Done Right.
Thank you, Egberto. You are a force of justice for good.
Thank you, my brother.